filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
And we're back, and just myself and S2 tonight. Not sure if S2's mic is working. Can you hear me, S2? That is a negatory. I cannot hear you. But we'll get started and hopefully get your audio issues sorted out here quickly. All right, I'm Chris Evan. I'm the CEO of Survival Dispatch. For those of you who haven't watched our podcast before, for those of you who have watched our podcast before, the conflicted question will be covered at the end of the video. And the brief for this video and every video, you can download it for free at patreon.com/survival dispatch. Has all the links, usually has extra links that we haven't or ran out of time that we couldn't necessarily cover. So tonight we're going to jump right in, and the topic is essentially for chapter 1, that is the mainstream media. You know, they're this close to death. They're not quite dead yet, but they're very close. And you got groups like AXIOS who've kind of made their own bed and they have to sleep in it now. So I'm going to bring up a document that I showed briefly last night, and I didn't go into it in depth. And I didn't go into it in depth for a very specific reason, because I knew we were going to cover this stuff tonight. So if somebody from the mainstream media on X, you know, belly aches how, oh my God, people, you know, they're not consuming our content anymore, or Elon Musk is a big meanie, and, you know, suggesting that y'all are the media now, and that's not fair, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of belly aching going on over this. This did not happen overnight, by the way. If you go to Yandex, any other search engine, search.brave.com, like the good ones that aren't stealing your data, like Google and DuckDuckGo and Bing, you just punch in, death of mainstream media. You'll see articles going back to the first time that Donald Trump ran, where some people at that time were postulating, you know what, the writing's on the wall. It's only going to be so long, you know, before the mainstream media actually croaks. I won't read this entire list, but I am going to hit on some of this. And the reason that I'm starting with this is when we say the mainstream media is dead, they killed themselves, and they killed themselves by pushing lies. These are all lies. They were all easily proven wrong. So I obviously downloaded this from somewhere else. This is not directed at our audience saying that you fell for them. This is, you know, public in general, but we know we've got a really smart audience here at SDN. So I'll rip through a handful of them here. By all means, leave comments in the chat or the comment section down below. But let's start with the first one, the fine people hoax. Even Obama was quoting that live about 4 weeks ago. Donald Trump never said that the neo-Nazis were fine people. He said it was out of context. He had said that there were other people, fine people on both sides of the equation. He was not describing the neo-Nazis. They edited out the part where he said, except for the neo-Nazis, sort of thing, right? Russia collusion. Nothing could be further, you know, wrong. I remember hearing when, you know, the mainstream media tried to say that there was a video of Donald Trump hiring Russian prostitutes to urinate on him in a hotel in Moscow. Like, thinking to myself, boy, howdy, you got to be pretty dense to buy into that sort of stuff. And most people were pretty dense who bought into that, but a lot of people didn't. 2020 election, you know, most secure in history. Biden is sharp as a tack in private. How many months did we hear that when it was clear that he was suffering from dementia? Kamala Harris, she wasn't the border czar. Y'all are imagining that. That never did happen. I'm not going to mention the next bullet because as soon as I, you know, verbalize it, the YouTube censorship engine will probably smoke this video. Trump said Liz Cheney should be executed by firing squad. He said no such thing. He said that if you put her on the front line while gunfire was going off, that she'd shit her pants, essentially. January 6th was an insurrection. Yeah, the only insurrection ever that happened with no guns And the only person who was actually murdered was Ashley Babbitt, murdered by Michael Bird, which there's no statute of limitations on that. And I highly suspect there's a good chance that he's going to get charged. Let's see. Trump said drinking bleach would fight COVID. Yep, he did not say any such thing as that. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with chemists. So if you have a compound called X and you have another compound that shares a little bit of the same molecules but is really not anything like it, they call it like X2 sort of thing. There's a compound called chlorine dioxide, has no relationship to chlorine bleach that you would think of. And that's where that craziness came from. Chlorine dioxide actually is a pretty amazing product. I got to be careful what I say there. We'll get smoked for medical misinformation on YouTube, but kind of hoping that with the death of the mainstream media imminent, if it hasn't already happened to some organizations, and plus the new incoming admin, plus Trump saying he's going after Google, for interfering with the election, amongst other things, we might actually start to be able to tell the truth in 2025 on YouTube, the whole truth. Right now, we can only tell a percentage of the truth. Otherwise, we get strikes. We just got over another strike on our second YouTube channel, by the way, for this craziness. Let's see, Jussie Smollett saying in the middle of the night that this is Trump country. This is MAGA country, when they beat him up and took his $6 Subway sandwich away from him. Complete bullshit, right? J.D. Vance saying that shootings are just a fact of life. Never said any such thing. The Border Patrol, horseback Border Patrol, whipping illegal invaders with their horse whips. No such thing happened. And those guys actually got punished for that. And the video completely exonerated them. It was an absolute disgrace. Bubba Wallace garage pull. Yep. So the rope on the NASCAR garage, the way it was positioned was somebody was engaging in, hate against him because he's black, and nothing could be further from the truth. It was just just bullshit, right? Hunter Biden's laptop, Russian disinformation. That's from 51 top intel, representatives with top secret clearance. And now we knew at the time, but, mainstream media playing to their audience tried to convince people, oh, this is a non-issue. Again, I don't know how they arrive at their numbers, but there have been people who've said millions of votes were swayed by that. They had polled Americans and said, would you have voted for Joe Biden if you hadn't known the laptop was a real deal? I think it's an extrapolation. I don't know that it was many millions. Let's just say it had an effect on it, but it's a great example of fake news, pure lies, and it just goes on, right? One that stands out to me right now, Covington kids. Those kids did absolutely nothing wrong, but they were vilified because they were white kids from a private school. And I don't remember what the number is, but it was like ginormous, like 100 million, 200 million awarded to them by, the court when he sued mainstream media for, they screwed that kid up, Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot, which we now know was the FBI itself trying to set up a sting. You had something like 11 FBI agents and one person that they were trying to sway. Chinese weather balloon, completely, nothing to see here, people. And on and on and on. So I won't read any more of this list. It's obvious it's a long list. The point I'm trying to make here is that the mainstream media have been doing the bidding of their masters. So if you look through the structure, we pulled a diagram up. I can't remember, yesterday, the day before, that Todd Callender did. Kind of shows the structure of where marching orders come from, et cetera, et cetera. And, the mainstream media, when I grew up, in the early 80s, there were something like 500 independent news organizations. Now you have these 5 or 6 media conglomerates that own, 95+%, and they're just the mockingbird media. And we're actually going to touch on that as well, because I think I've got an article pulled up specific to Operation Mockingbird, which of course the CIA was behind. So on the one hand, they were given marching orders to broadcast full-on lies, but on the other hand, they played up so much, let's say in the past 10 years, that they drove the nails into their own coffin. And this one here kills me. We've played it before, but I'm going to play it again. This guy is a whiny, no testosterone soy boy crying over Elon Musk pointing out the truth. The mainstream media has lost all credibility. Nobody believes them. Their numbers are unbelievable. Like shows during the daytime on CNN can't even get 37,000 views. Nighttime, they might get, a couple 100,000 viewers. And meanwhile, you got people doing podcasts getting millions of views, sometimes billion, right? Elon and Trump's conversation, 2 billion views in the first 48 hours. So I'm going to play the whole minute and 51 seconds because this guy, the CEO of AXIOS, his response and attitude here paints a perfectly clear picture of just the whiny bitches, for lack of a better word, in the mainstream media.
Matters. Everything we do is under fire. Elon Musk sits on Twitter every day, or X today, saying like, we are the media, you are the media. My message to Elon Musk is bullshit. You're not the media.
Cry more.
You having a blue check mark, a Twitter handle, and 300 words of cleverness doesn't make you a reporter any more than me looking at your head and seeing that you have a brain and telling you have an awesome set of tools makes me a damn neurosurgeon, right? Like what we do, what journalists do, what you did in Mississippi, what Al Jazeera does in the Middle East. You don't proclaim yourself to be a reporter. Like that's nonsense. Like being a reporter's hard, really hard.
Oh my God. So by the way, if you want to go have a look at axios.com and look at the trash that this guy's organization publishes. And my initial thoughts, by the way, when I was putting together the brief and the structure for this episode, I was going to feature a bunch of Axios articles. I went and looked at it. It is so bad. I thought, you know what? I'm not going to give these clowns any more clicks and I'm not going to give them any more coverage. But this guy, I mean, he's literally having a meltdown. He's going to cry. That's the funny thing, by the way. You see a lot of stuff on X where somebody says so-and-so had a meltdown and you go watch it and, the person was upset. And I'm not talking necessarily people on our side or mainstream media or whatever, but this guy is the best meltdown that I've seen from the mainstream media.
You have to care. You have to do the hard work. You have to get up every single day and say, I want to get to the closest approximation of the truth without any fear, without any favoritism.
Oh my God, that's such a bald-faced lie.
Who is this guy to set the standards for journalism?
Say that again, S2. I missed the first part.
I said, who is this guy to set the standards for journalism? Because he clearly has lost sight of it.
Yeah, no question at all. And actually, there's only maybe like 40 seconds left or so to play S2, and then I'm going to come straight to you now that you got your audio sorted out.
You don't do that by having an opinion. You do it by doing the hard work.
Yeah, come on, slow clap, everybody. Whoa. First of all, I've got to say.
Hold on, before I let this clown say anything, I mean, oh my God. This stuff just cracks me up where they sit there and they applaud each other. Check it out, man. You got Morning Joe, who's full of crap, and his wife, Micah. They went and bent the knee to Trump, but look all the way over on the right-hand side. You got the race hustler over there, Reverend Al Sharpton. And what was not disclosed at this point in time is that the Kamala campaign gave him a massive sum of money. And then, of course, he's part of all their election coverage on MSNBC. But no conflict of interest. I mean, the mainstream media, 100% legit.
Extraordinary content. It needed to be said.
Ordinary.
It continues to need to be said. When all of the garbage is flying around on social media, lying about reporters, lying about the hard work they do, lying about the hard work editors do, lying about everything up and down about not only their alternative set of facts, but alternative set of facts about what people like you do.
All right.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
There's actually an extended video of that. I didn't want to bore the audience too much with it. With Morning Joe, I swear to God, he does it like 15 times. He says something, he says, and it matters. And then he does the next thing, and it matters. And I was thinking to myself, God, I would have loved to have been on set that day to say, You're full of shit.
You know, here's the funny thing about all that is that he mentions one word in his entire diatribe there, the word editor.
Right.
And here's the fact. If you were telling the truth, why do you need an editor?
Well, doesn't that imply that it's been editorialized as
Well,
well?
if it's
In
been
addition to the comment?
if it's been editorialized, then it's an opinion. It's not a
Bingo.
fact.
My point precisely, which all of this stuff, you know what cracked me up S2, and I mean, you work in the intel side of things, is that when he's saying, well, it takes all this hard work. Really? It takes a lot of hard work to take an email from somebody in some government, agency that hands you the story and the narrative because the Smith-Mundt Act got modernized and they're allowed to do that now. I mean,
Oh, and Al Sharpton, he's another character. It wasn't him. This is how they got around that disclosure. So the Kamala campaign gave Al Sharpton's PAC, his political action committee, two
Okay.
donations of $250,000 apiece. So they didn't give it directly to Al Sharpton, but they gave it to Al Sharpton.
well, I mean, you weren't around the past couple nights, but we had a discussion, I think it was 2 days ago, S2, on how NGOs are essentially, we take taxpayer money, the government gives it to an NGO, the NGO does things that are illegal and things that the taxpayers do not want, like $451 billion a year being spent on illegals, right? And it puts them kind of at arm's length. This is exactly the same thing that you're describing.
Oh yeah.
It's truly mind-numbing. The good news is, and I saw somebody, it might have been Katie, I don't know, it went flying by pretty fast, that thank God that we won the election. I mean, there is a lot of hard work to do. I don't have to tell you that. The next 2 years are going to be pretty dang critical. And, we're not out of the woods yet as far as saving our country is concerned. But I honestly feel like this election cycle, we've finally crossed the Rubicon as far as mainstream media, because I'm hearing from people now that for years my wife and I have said, you don't believe that, do you? Like that's fabricated nonsense. And they would still believe it. And I'm typically talking people who are older than I am. So baby boomers, of course, I'm Gen X, because they were raised at a time to believe the government and believe the mainstream media. Well, those people now in particular are coming back to me and saying, man, I had no idea that this was all a fabricated, lie, all these things, these narratives. And then on the other side, my youngest son is serving at Fort Benning, and he'll be 24 here shortly, 25 actually, pardon me. And he is hardcore patriot, obviously serving in the military, but him and all of his buddies, they don't buy into any of this mainstream stuff at all. And
Chris, are you telling me that they're coming back to you now and saying Chris was right?
Well, not everybody says that.
you're catching what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. It's the good news is that, as John calls them, the normies, a lot of the normies are starting to wake up to this stuff now. So again, I feel like we've crossed a Rubicon, and I feel like we got this one shot left to try and fix things. But boy, there's a lot of heavy lifting to do. Although I'll tell you what, I've got a lot of information on the back end that we're going to start sharing with people. Lieutenant Colonel Doc Pete Chambers would be a good example. Is coming back on, our good friend, on Wednesday, and he's going to give our audience an update on some stuff related to these upcoming mass deportations. And there are a lot of people working, around the clock to do this stuff and save our country. So it's not just a matter of, bluster, let's say. But I got a handful of links I'm going to pull up, S2. I'll give you a chance to comment on all of them. But I'm not going to read through all of these, because the point is that the mainstream media, kind of self-inflicted, kind of not self-inflicted, because the powers that be have told them what to do. But this first paragraph here is really, what caught my eye on this particular article. The old mainstream media is dying and has been for years. Agreed. This has only become more apparent in the weeks since Donald Trump was reelected. And notice how they put reselected. I mean, give me a break. That's like Joe Biden was selected and installed, not Donald Trump. But anyway, news that CNN is firing half their workforce, that MSNBC's ratings continue to plummet is more like it, and is probably being sold, or that The Guardian is leaving X and in financial trouble, are greeted with celebratory memes. And I mean, you and Mike Sterling are the meme masters. Do you want to comment just on this paragraph alone, S2, before we go to the next one?
Yeah, this is really funny because we've been seeing leftist rags going down the tubes left and right for the last year. Nobody believes you anymore, Joey. It's people just don't believe them anymore. They're seeing it. It's being put in front of their faces, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're not seeing the amount of pushback from the election that we expected to see, because there is no doubt in anybody's mind that Donald Trump indeed won the election. He wasn't selected.
Yeah, well said, S2. There was a comment on this, by the way. So while you're away, we had we showed a couple articles that essentially said that the media in particular, but also the Democrat supporters, were exhausted from fighting Donald Trump now for the past 10 years, whatever it is, well, better part of 9-10 years. And you and I and Mike Sterling, we've had discussions on how even some of our followers, we started to notice as we got, closer to the election, that a lot of people were just getting black pilled. Like they're just like, I've heard enough. I don't want to hear anymore. Let's get back to life. But give me your thoughts on those two things in particular.
Oh yeah, I mean myself, I've been suffering from a bit of fatigue here as of late. That's one of the reasons why I'm having to back away from a lot of the things that I was doing, but it doesn't mean that I don't understand that the hard work is just beginning. It just means that I'm talking to a lot of other people. I've seen people fall away from activities that I've been involved in that they've been pretty consistent with, and they're just kind of backing off from things right now too. I mean, I think we've all got to go back and get our second wind at this point, because like I said, the hard work is just about to begin.
Yeah, well said. Well said, definitely. And then the element of fatigue's definitely out there. So redacted news, 2.55 million subscribers on YouTube. They got a good thing going on over there. Generally speaking, I agree with their reporting. Never going to agree with somebody 100%, but for the most part, agree with these guys. This is, let me see, like almost a 19-minute video. I'm just going to play a little bit from the beginning, and because it speaks to the mainstream media dying.
Chris,
Go ahead.
before you move into that video, I have something I'd like to say about that.
Sure.
It's what's been interesting to watch has been the mainstream media and their plummeting ratings and things like that. I see obstacles with the alternative media right now, trying to make their rise up through those legions of things. And one of the obstacles I think they may run into is going to be where they're going to get their facts from, because where we had a lot of governmental entities that were leaking things to the mainstream media, and that's what they called their news. I don't know that we're going to be able to get that same kind of coverage now, which means, as I said, the hard work is just beginning, because if the alternative media can't get access to the facts that they need to get access to in order to be able to report on it and be transparent with the American people, it's going to be very difficult. And I hope that we don't fall into that trap of not being able to get a hold of those facts and be able to continue this fight moving forward.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of stuff from that perspective, but my thoughts in general are that the mainstream media have lost the audience, right? It doesn't matter if it's online, on cable TV, whatever, they have lost the audience. So I think whether or not mainstream media has access to, intel from the back end, which has all been propaganda, I don't think that will save them. I don't think that matters. I do agree with you. Like, we still have to have access to get the truth out there. I suppose, again, I haven't really pondered this S2, but I guess my feeling would be if you take everybody who contributes in some way or another to Survival Dispatch and Survival Dispatch News, we have a very, very large circle, right, of people in different roles. And we've in particular been very fortunate to be given information that wasn't available elsewhere. The best example I can make, bar none, would be having access to the Edison data where all voting precincts report into. We had information an hour before anybody else on an election night, just because we have great connections. It wasn't because we're, some superstars or anything like that.
But that doesn't necessarily make us the media either. It's like somebody had once recently said, is that we are the media now. That means us, the public, the general public. We tell people the facts that we're given, or the facts that we find out. We actually do the work. We're doing the hard work that they're not doing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, here's the other angle that I would approach this from, and keep in mind, my background, tech plus business development, right? So at the end of the day, I'm a sales guy, and nothing more, nothing less. So I think in terms of, if you jump on the Signal chat, S2, and you say, hey, check this out, I was able to buy these components. I want to use like the drone, for example, it cost me $150 and, half a day to assemble it. And I've got a drone that would sell for, an order of magnitude more than that. People who trust you then say, well, tell me how you did that. Give me more details on that. Okay. So you trusted the vendor and you put it together, and the people in the Signal chat trust you. So that trust gets transferred. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the way that this reporting stuff goes for us in particular, but other, podcasts as well, like Redacted. If somebody trusts Redacted, and Redacted say, hey, we endorse this person or something to that effect, the trust gets transferred, and then the audience is more likely to believe and to engage and to buy from a sales perspective. So
yeah, we're not always going to get it right. I mean, but
for sure.
here's what's special about all of these different organizations that are out there right now is everybody has an analyst on their staff in some way, shape, or form. Everybody has people on their staff that have the ability to critically think about things. And when we're giving a set of facts, we're not given the entire clear picture of things, but we can basically say what the most probable thing is that's going to come out of that set of facts. And 9 times out of 10, what I've been finding is when we get those facts that can allow us to build those probabilities, 9 times out of 10, we're right on the money.
Yeah, I would agree, and that's a good position to take, right? And so it would speak to, in my opinion, that would speak to the experience that you bring to the table, that Mike brings to the table, that all of us bring to the table. Where as you get a little older, you start to think to yourself, well, wait a minute, we've seen this before, and this was the result. So therefore, it kind of makes sense that it's going to go this direction and actually have some authenticity, genuineness to it, I guess. But let me play just the beginning of this video from Redacted again. If people want to watch all of this stuff, and I would encourage you to, I watched the whole thing myself. Just go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, free membership. You can get the briefs for every single episode. It has all the links, has commentary, has all the extra stuff that we didn't have time to get to. Think of it as like a curated news brief for you each day.
Even care. They're not trying to earn your trust back. But let's take a look at a recent Gallup poll. This chart says so much. So according to a new Gallup poll, trust in the media is plummeting for all parties.
Isn't that incredible, S2? I mean,
I full well expected it. It's been going on since the 1950s. It's been going slowly downhill, but now it's on the down slope of a roller coaster at this point.
Yeah, it's, picture says 1,000 words.
Partisan groups, they don't seem to be trying to apologize. There's no mea culpa. There's a few. Recall recently there was an NPR reporter who tried to say, like, look, we lost trust during the pandemic and during the Trump years. We need to be able to see past partisan. And that guy got fired because he was the only one who was trying to soul search why people hate the media so much. So they don't care. But the chart shows that the pandemic was actually, so let's take a look at this and let's collectively think why this chart looks like this. Now, the blue line there, obviously.
So, I mean, we've got a whole bunch of reasons lined up tonight, why this is happening. And really, at the end of the day, you hit the nail on the head. Nobody trusts them anymore. So, I mean, you can do a post-mortem on this, and you can pinpoint all the things like that big list that we put up at the beginning as far as what is the mainstream media done to deserve this. The mainstream media has transitioned, let's say, from, people who, I think Walter Cronkite, for the most part, had good intentions. And maybe that's just because I grew up, watching him and the nightly update on what was going on in Vietnam when I was younger. But either way, the mainstream media are, number one, they're absolutely to blame for the BS that they've peddled as truth, but they're owned now, right? They're owned in two different respects. Here's something for you, S2, that I'll get you to comment on. So number one, we've got these big conglomerates that own all the media outlets, which, by the way, looks like we lost S2. Hopefully he'll be back here in just a second. So as far as the media being owned, what I'm getting at here while we're waiting on S2, here he comes. All right, we just got to give it a second for him to get back in line here. Can you hear me, S2?
Yeah, my internet decided it was going to take a dump. I guess I was talking about stuff I shouldn't be talking about again.
Right. Okay, so good timing, though. So at the end of the day, you've got the mainstream media has been purchased by large groups, BlackRock, Vanguard, and been used essentially as the propaganda arm, the propaganda piece, right? But by the same token, I like her point how when somebody in the media tries to stand up and do the right thing, they lose their job. They're gone. So essentially we have, call it theater for lack of a better term. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that as to how we got to this point with media, but
Sounds a bit like fascism to me.
well, imagine that, right? Could very well be. I like, on the one hand, I want to say that they shot themselves in the foot to a certain extent, but on the other hand, I also know that they've been given their marching orders by the large conglomerate. So either way, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we say about this. The damage has been done to their reputation. I guess what matters now, S2, and let me get you to comment on this. People aren't going to, cable TV to get their news anymore. They're seeking out sources online. And so there's people like you and me that we consume everything from left to right and everything in between. And then there's other people that have their favorite people to follow, so on and so forth. Can the mainstream media leverage the tools that we use? X, for example, let's just use that to reclaim some of their credibility, or are they too far gone? I know what my answer is, but I want to hear what you got to say.
Well, they've been trying to use those tools and have been failing miserable because once again, there is that transference of trust that you mentioned earlier. And the problem with it is, how do I put this? The era of the sea, if you follow me with that,
Mm-hmm.
they pushed too hard, they pushed too fast, and people woke up really quick to the fact of what was going on. And when they started to see what was happening and they saw who was actually pushing the narratives out there, that was when the complete that was the apple that upset the apple cart, so to speak. But this has been going on for a long time. I mean, this happened back with the Gulf of Tonkin with Walter Cronkite. I mean, they lied about that to foment a war. And just like they're lying about stuff continually now to keep on fomenting these forever wars.
Right.
They've lost. I don't think they're ever going to be able to come back from this. The only way that they're going to be able to come back from it is if somebody like Donald Trump or somebody like Elon Musk actually buys them out and takes control of those organizations and establishes a standard of journalism that needs to be reinstated back in there. And it's going to take a very long time because those names like MSNBC, CNC, CNN, um, those names are associated with distrust now. So the whole thing is going to have to be repackaged, rebranded, and not only that, they are going to have to display that they are worthy of the American people's trust again through their actions, not through what they say.
Yeah, a good point. So I personally, like, if you look at this, a busted business model, and from Newsweek of all people, and this graph in particular that shows pay TV versus non-pay TV households, cable essentially, for the first time in a very long time, there are more households that don't have, the cable and the pay TV versus the ones who do. We're a great example of that. I mean, I cut the cord in the early 2000s. Then when Cindy and I got married, there were some shows she liked to watch on cable, but a couple of years ago, we smoked it, and everything is streamed. If we're going to watch something on TV, it'll be streamed. I'm not a big TV watcher as it is, but there's the odd thing that I like on there. Like, she watches Yellowstone, and it's a decent TV series. I could probably name the number of TV series in one hand in my lifetime that I actually, like to watch. But I think if I'm getting your drift right, is that they will have to come into, the X space, for lack of a better term, and prove themselves there, because people aren't going back the other way. I mean, when we canceled our cable TV, we had Spectrum Cable at the same time as well, S2. We were paying $300 a month, and it was like, WTF? Like, this is a ripoff, man. This is not a good value.
And for what? They take away your channels. You don't have the channels because they're constantly in fights with the networks. So, and then they turn around and they want to raise your rates. And frankly, I have 100 channels of shopping crap to watch, and the rest of it, and I'd probably say another 50 channels of sports crap to watch that I don't give a damn about. I'm a movie guy. I'm a kind of a satire guy and those kind of things, because that's where I get a lot of my facts from, believe it or not. And cable TV, to me, it was a great invention back in the day. If you had the little push button box that connected to your TV, but nowadays it's even your news. You can get your news, like I'll use Real America's Voice, for instance. They're on Roku. They're on all of the platforms now.
Mhm.
And with the advent of True Social Plus coming out now they're going to be streamed also. So there really isn't anything that the cable tethers have for anybody, or not even the satellite tethers for that matter. They have nothing anymore. They're shells.
So, for many years after I kind of exited high tech, there was a group of us that provided consulting services to Fortune 1000s, and we had tech teams on staff and whatnot. But in 2010, we started discussing this, what at the time was referred to as the convenience economy. And I'll give you some really easy examples of the convenience economy. There's a franchise operation out there called the Brake Squad. So you need to have the brakes done in your vehicle, right? So instead of dropping your vehicle off and taking an Uber or getting a ride, then going back to pick it up, the brake squad come to your home or place of work, fix the brakes, and you pay over your phone, and you haven't lost any time. And just to put a fine point on it, time's the most valuable commodity in the world. It's the only thing that can't be bought or replaced. That's very convenient. Okay. So then, before we had the C thing, that you mentioned, I worked with the very first MD in the state of Florida with a DPC practice, direct primary care. So they had been at play on the West Coast for a while, but Dr. Delicia Haynes was the first one here in Florida. And the gist of it is that you pay a monthly fee, just like you would for a gym membership. And just like a gym membership, you use it as much or as little as needed.
Yeah,
and
like a co-op.
Yeah, if you go in Sears, there's an hour set aside for you, not the 6 or 7 minutes dictated by insurance, because there is no insurance in direct primary care. Over 95% of doctors' visits are primary care. So I can't remember what Cindy and I pay. I mean, we get a discount because I help Delicia and we've been friends, but I want to say we pay, I don't know, $125 a month, something like that. Everything is done by telehealth. And it's been that way since I started working with Delicia 10 years ago. And we brought her model, to this area. And that's another great example of convenience economy. So here's a great example. Friday night, you're not feeling good. And of course, we're preppers, so we've got all kinds of stuff stacked up like Jace cases and whatnot. But you're ill, so you reach out by text, to a number, and somebody gets back to you and asks you what's going on. And then, if necessary, you talk to the doctor, and then they submit a script for a Z-Pack. And 10 minutes later, your text message goes off. You go pick up your Z-Pack, and you aren't paying hundreds of dollars to go to an urgent care clinic that's full of other sick people where you might get even sicker. And you certainly don't have to wait until Monday or Tuesday and lose your entire weekend feeling like crap. So here's what I'm getting at, as to just to close the loop on this. Do you remember when we were younger, and it's like the season finale of Happy Days? And it's like, holy crap, I got to get home in time, to eat dinner so I can see the finale of, who shot JR sort of thing.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I mean, people today, younger people today, obviously wouldn't be able to relate to this. This is the convenience economy, right? You can reach out and get your information whenever you want. It's on demand. So I think when you look at these talk shows, like Morning Joe, I think is on for 4 hours every day in the morning.
God, how can anybody watch that crap for that long?
Well, number one, yes. How could anybody watch that for that long? And number two, we've all got jobs. Like, we're not going to stop to watch any program at that time of day, those of us who work. So I think that Jump the Shark, who just said that? No one, nowhere. Right on. Good job. When Fonzarelli jumped the shark, right? And that basically, for people who don't know, the Fonz from Happy Days jumped over a tank that had a shark in it, sort of thing. And that came to basically destroy the reputation of Happy Days. They'd gone too far. They went from being a decent show that was kind of set in the 50s and all the good things happened in the 50s to Fonzie jumped a shark in the parking lot at Big Al's. And that's just not believable. And that was the end of that series, right? So jumping the shark means you've gone too far. And that's exactly what mainstream media has done. I appreciate you, No One Nowhere, bringing that up. Good call. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that I don't think anybody's going back to the cable model. It's a broken model. You have this stuff at play that, we're continuing to discuss this evening, where there's just no trust in mass media. And I am really happy to see this, because how many times, S2, over the past, let's say, 15, 20 years, have you said something to somebody and they looked at you sideways like, oh, you're one of those conspiracy people? And, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, open your frickin' eyes. And they're looking at you thinking that you're a crackpot. This sort of stuff, like these developments, this chart, we're moving things in the right direction, is my feeling.
I just look at people now and I say, yep.
That reminds me like a very Southern thing, God bless you, sweetheart.
No, it's bless your heart. Bless your heart.
Well, either way, when a Southern woman says that to you, you've just been put in your place. So this is a publication from New Zealand. So again, all of us at Survival Dispatch read news and watch news from around the world and across the political spectrum. I especially like keeping an eye on Canada, New Zealand, Great Britain, and Australia, because they're good, harbingers of things to come here. But here's their take in New Zealand on this. And when you talk that letter C, S2, I mean, they were the most tyrannical of them all, Jacinda Ardern. But it's basically, here's where things have gone. And they put X right at the middle of it. And I shudder to think what would have happened if Elon hadn't have, purchased X and restored freedom of speech, and free flowing of information. So there's not really much to comment on there, but I'll go to the next one here. So the Blaze, this is Glenn Beck. I didn't like Glenn Beck in years gone by when he was on cable TV, because I felt that it was too much hyperbole and histrionics, and it just didn't appeal to me. I'm not that guy who watches that kind of news, but man, has he ever got really good over the years. I mean, his content is top notch. He's got surrounded by a great team. It's almost like he's seasoned in his older age, and he's probably around my age, mid-50s would be my guess, where he makes very logical conclusions, and he doesn't throw it out there like, if you disagree with me, you're an idiot. He doesn't do anything like that. But I pulled this one up in particular because of Dana White's comments here. So let's have a quick listen.
Well, if you saw the election, the entire country relates with Trump right now. Won all the swing states. The only states she won were the ones that you didn't need ID to vote in. It would have been interesting if you needed ID, how that would have played out too. I think that I think the whole country, it feels like somebody hit the reset button. Everything feels, and however this election went, everybody was hoping it was a blowout either way, so there would be no more bullshit. And what I think is, I think everybody's tired of the bullshit, man. We're all tired. We all just want to live our lives and run our businesses and raise our families and do all that shit. And hopefully this stuff will all simmer down in the next 4 years.
So, I mean, I love Dana White. He's a guy's guy, same age as me. And, his opinions are good. He's done a lot of stuff over the years, S2, that has really appealed to me. Just like, one of the advertisers for UFC called him up and said, hey, you put this personal post on your personal Facebook and you need to take that down or we're going to pull our advertising. And he went off on them. You don't tell me what I post. You don't tell me what I put up. You can take your advertising money and shove it. There's numerous instances like that with Dana White that he's earned my respect. Not that he gives a crap what Chris Evans thinks about him, but he spoke in that video S2 to the same thing that we just touched on, right? People are just tired. They're fatigued. They've had enough of the baloney. And I think people are going to continue to consume small bite-sized chunks of news from places like X and Rumble, to a lesser extent, maybe YouTube. And of course, Zuckerberg's done a mea culpa with Trump and pledged that he's going to allow free speech just like Elon. But
I'm gonna blow a horn here for somebody real quick. Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
Okay? So Steve Bannon had made a statement. I guess it's been 4 or 5 years ago now. He basically said this. He said, "You're going to try to take shots at everybody. You're going to take shots at the people. You no longer are going to be able to take shots at the people because the people have had a belly full." He hit that statement right on the head. And it's exactly that. The American public is tired of being lied to. We're tired of being lied about, and we're not going to take it anymore. That's it.
Yeah, well, very well said. And Steve Bannon, God bless him, man. I mean, he's a true blue American patriot, completely victimized by this lawfare. And I love how he's kind of leading the charge on people like Jack Smith saying, preserve evidence and don't leave the country because your turn's next. And yeah, I know we're supposed to, as Christians, we're supposed to, turn the other cheek and all that sort of stuff. But
I ain't got but two.
Yeah, boy, howdy. I don't know if it's so much retribution really like on my part, but the score needs to be evened up here so that it can impress even further upon people just how bad it was, like just how much these people lied and did these horrible things. So moving on to the next one here. So Trump mulls opening White House press room to independent journalists. And this is something that Trump Jr. posted just this past week. I can't remember how long this video is, but we'll play the first little bit.
But I wonder now, as your father is assembling his team, as maybe Caroline Levitt is looking at the new press briefing room chart, maybe it's time to reorder that chart and maybe take away some people's seats.
So we're going to break some news here because I literally had this conversation. I was flying back. I was on the plane, I guess, with my father. I think it was coming back from the SpaceX launch with Elon last week. And I was sitting there And we were talking about like the podcast world and some of our friends and Rogan and guys like you and, you know, me to a lesser extent, you know, I wouldn't be able to get a seat. That would be nepotism or whatever the hell, you know, I'd be indicted again. I'd have to do more congressional testimony, so I'll pass. But we actually had this conversation about like, given how the media has behaved. I mean, you brought up the New York Times. You know, you saw the fact check of Bobby Kennedy talking about the different ingredients in Fruit Loops. And it was like, no, it's exactly the same as Canada, except we use yellow dye number 5 here instead of like orange, like carrots. And we use, you know, purple dye number 2,376 instead of blueberry extract. And I'm like, that's your fact check? Like, it's the same, but for these like really toxic chemicals that are banned in, you know, dozens of countries. Like, I don't get it. But we had the conversation about opening up the press room to a lot of these independent journalists. Like, you know, why should, if the New York Times has lied, they've been adverse to everything, they're functioning as the marketing arm of the Democrat Party, like, why not open it up to people who have larger viewerships, stronger followings? Like, it's not like the New York, I mean, how much money are they losing a year? The Washington Post, lost 70 to 45 to $70 million. You know, doesn't seem like they're a great success. So just because they've been there longer, it's like the way Congress functions. Like, you get a committee, not because you know anything about banking, but because you've been there longer. And it's like, right, doesn't seem like a great way to do things. So we've had that conversation. Like, that's a great idea, Don. I was like, I think we should do this. And so that may be in the works. Let's see.
What do you think of that, Stu? What do you think of like people like Alex Jones and Joe Rogan being allowed in, and some of these mainstream media clowns like, oh my goodness, who was the guy that Trump threw out in his first term? Jim Acosta. You know, just a complete, you know, mouthpiece.
That's going to blow up some heads. So, you know, we'll see.
Oops. It accidentally started to replay again there. Stu, you're on mute. Give me your thoughts of the Trump admin letting in podcasters.
I think they kind of have to at this point. And I wouldn't necessarily say podcasters. I would say members of the alternative media. Okay. You know, we have podcasters, we have Tim Pool, we have Sean Ryan, we have those folks are podcasters. They are the documentarians, as I call them. Okay. We have the alternative media, which actually reports the facts, like redacted news and things like that. Those people, I absolutely 100% agree that they should be let into the press conferences. And I think that a number of the people from CNN, ABC, NBC, and ABS need to go.
Hold on, technical difficulty. Sorry. Go again. My apologies. I accidentally hit a button there.
So I 100% agree that the people from the alternative media, like redacted news and those folks, they absolutely do need to be let into those press conferences, because that's where we're supposed to get the facts directly. And I certainly hope that the new press secretary is going to be more truthful than Mophead has been.
But S2, she's a historic figure. You didn't get the memo?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
She said that. She said she was interviewed by somebody. She said, I am a historic figure in a historic time. And it's just like the hubris is just off.
Yeah, I've never seen a bigger giant ass in my life.
There you go. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. But like I said, the alternative media, they need to be let into the press conferences. People from the mainstream media, we already know that they're going to spin everything every which way they can with whatever is said, and we need to not give them back that bullhorn. Basically, let's take the batteries out of their bullhorn and kick them to the curb.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. That's very well said, S2. So the next article that's up here, this is on Fox News, the podcast campaign, so it ties into your previous comments. Is it curtains for mainstream media? And I'm not going to play the whole broadcast here. It looks like it's 5 minutes long. You can go grab the brief if you want to watch the whole thing, but I will play the beginning of it.
Look at how much media time was wasted on questions like this.
I don't have to tell them that. But these are great people. These are people that believe in no violence. Unlike your question, you believe in violence.
A little tangling with the journalist who asked that. Most of the media told us, we touched on this earlier, that Kamala Harris was running a fantastic, celebrity-packed, joy-filled campaign. Every time she'd appear with Oprah, Beyonce, it was, it made news. And as soon as she lost, it was like, oh, she was too cautious and she wasn't authentic and she didn't separate from Biden. So it sounds like the press knew this and was covering for her.
Yes, I think they were pretending while she was running because they were in favor of her, and there were things that.
All right, S2. So if that doesn't prove to people, that the mainstream media are basically the propaganda arm of the powers that be, I don't know what would. I mean, they lied through the entire thing. I honestly feel that one of the biggest reasons that Trump won is because he went to the podcasters and he went to where the audience is, and he didn't give the mainstream media the power that they are used to having during election cycles. Any comments on that?
Well, not only that, we've watched the documentarians, as I call them. He went on to the documentarian shows and had conversations with people. This is where we saw a side of Donald Trump that we've not seen before. We always saw him in a courtroom with his, looking angry and things like that. And everybody kind of knew that we're inside of his circles that he was an authentic person. But until he started going out there to where the everyday man is hanging out, which is on the documentarian sites, which is on the alternative media sites, you started to see this authenticity. You said it earlier. There's a level of authenticity that has to be perceived by the public in order for them to put a certain level of trust into public figures. And I think that was a very smart move. His son Barron was the one that suggested this.
Yes.
So I think that it was a very smart move for him to do that. It basically showed the side of him that nobody had been seeing until now, which was that authenticity to shine through. You'd see him go to the Bronx, you'd see him go to places where he's just a rich white old billionaire that's making a lot of money and he's just out there doing this for show. Well, no, he's actually out there talking to people, shaking people's hands. Let's take the families who've had their families decimated by illegal aliens, for instance, Lake and Riley, those folks. He would actually go to those families and do what he could for them and acknowledge the fact that their family had been destroyed. He was going to the Bronx. He was going to these other places where people were having a really hard time struggling with just day-to-day life because of the inflation that the Biden regime had created. And it showed that he cared. And I think that was a very important step to take.
Yeah, Joe Rogan said something along the lines of, we have witnessed a massive psyop over the past 10 years on behalf of the powers that be to paint Donald Trump as something that he is not. And, the interesting thing is that if you go back through Donald Trump's entire career, you will find story after story after story of him or his family doing something very altruistic for other people, but they don't publicize it. It's not like, hey, look at this thing that I did. I think of Trump's father who paid for the guy and his brothers to continue going to this school after their father died. That guy kind of followed around Donald Trump to a few different events in the New York, New Jersey area because he wanted to thank Donald Trump. And he had tears running down his face as he was saying to, Donald Trump, how Fred Trump had paid for his family's schooling and he couldn't thank him enough. There are countless stories of Donald Trump doing things like that. And I don't really care for Richard Branson, to be quite, blunt, because of his politics. But 20 years ago or so, he said, all of these companies that are focused on the CX, short form for customer experience, they're doing this wrong. And they need to focus on the employee experience. If you have happy employees, you will have happy customers, and you don't have to ram, customer experience SOPs, standard operating procedures, down their throat. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, I've never been a big shopper at Walmart or anything like that, but we had to return something for my son, and we're standing in line, S2, and I don't remember how many people were in line. It was a lot. and there's this one girl, behind the counter going to process all of these returns. And she wasn't really 100% up to speed. So she's calling people for help. And the people in the lineup were getting angry, and she was getting angry. And it just really struck me at that particular point in time. I know things have changed somewhat at Walmart, but if you treat your employees like crap, you can ram SOPs down their throat all you want. Unhappy employee, unhappy customers. It's just that simple. And why do I say that? Every single Trump facility I've been to, normally when we're in Vegas, we stay at the Trump hotel because there's no casinos, there's no smoke, and there's the world's best burger joints across the room from it. But anyway, point being is, I purposely, like when I go to any Trump property, I observe, I'm looking for what the employee's demeanor is like. And it's always the same. A fish rots from the head down. The same goes for a company that has a great leader. And, the way you describe it is perfect. People finally got to see the real Donald Trump because he said, screw you to the mainstream media. And he took Barron's advice.
Well, not only that, language means things too.
Oh yeah.
When he started speaking about things in language of the everyday man, when he would turn around and say what they're saying is bullshit. I mean, and he used that. They kept telling him, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. He says, no, I'm going to say what I want to say because it's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, a great example. So anyway, we're at the end of chapter 1, and we're fixing to go into chapter 2 of tonight's episode, where we cover, various headline news things. Y'all have heard me say this before, that 90% of the products that are sent to Survival Dispatch never make it on our channel. We are not in the business of hurting other people's businesses. And I'm glad that we have that policy, simply based on the fact we've received products, didn't work. If we had published a negative review on that product and hurt the vendor, it would have been a disservice, because we've sent it back to people and they said, yeah, there's shipping damage to this that we found. Let us send you another one. They send another one. It works perfect. And then I'm sitting here going, phew, thank God that we didn't hurt them over something like shipping damage. So this time of year, we get inundated with people saying, we'd like to send you this, that, and the other thing. And I tell them all the same thing. You can send it, but there's no guarantees that, that we're going to feature it on our channel at all. So I want to give a shout out to these guys here, Muse, and they make some really decent audio products, like different types of speakers like this one. Check this out. Actually, I don't have that camera going. I've got all these different cameras here, so I'll pick it up. So this little guy is absolutely tiny. It's one of the few products that I'm willing to put on our channel. And, the funny thing is Cindy and I, one of the things we both share is we got to have music when we're doing stuff, especially if we're exercising or anything like that. And without going too deep, down the rabbit hole, but when I started training and went to the first gym back in the 80s, my first gym membership, whoever got there first with a ghetto blaster got to choose the music, and it was either Black Sabbath, or Black Sabbath sort of thing. So that's why you heard that earlier, because I accidentally hit the thing. This thing, for being the size that it is, number one, it's really stout. The construction's really good. I've dropped it, doesn't matter. I put it on a lanyard or a carabiner, hook it on my pants. I've been using this every single day for 2 months. So if you look on Amazon, the regular price, I think, is like $90 or something. And they've got this Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal on $69. Well, there's a coupon down below to get another 25% off of this. So I think it comes out to like $52 and change, that you can get this little speaker. It's friggin' bad to the bone, not to mention the fact that it's kind of cool looking. It's got a built-in flashlight as well, which is kind of neat. It's a nice little extra, because as I get older, in particular, I don't know about US too, but something that's black on a black background, I can't freaking see it, man. It kills me. So then I'm hunting for a flashlight. I've got flashlights all over my friggin' house, simply because of that. So anyway, long story short, this product meets our specs and standards. I exercise about 45 minutes a day, 5 times a week, and use that. And it lasts the entire week without being recharged. So then I just plug it in until I start the next week stuff. So it's not like a lot of these Bluetooth products are, battery hogs. It's not. It's pretty decent in that regard. And if you don't like the green color, as you can see over here, there's like half a dozen different other colors. And actually, I brought this up just so you could see it. So I put it in my shopping cart. I put the coupon that's down below into it with Florida sales tax, Volusia County sales tax, which is $3.41, came to $55.90, so just under $56. If you look at the equivalent products, I've got one sitting right over here from Bose. It was $350. Now it's bigger, so it's got more bottom end. But you know what? Bang for the buck, this little sucker is well worth it. So there's link down below, coupon down below. It's literally the only Black Friday, Cyber Monday special that we're willing to stand behind at Survival Dispatch. All right, so let's move on from there. And clearly, one of the biggest news items right now is...
Here we go.
Yeah. So what I'm just going to preface this very briefly, and then I want you to weigh in because I know this is in your wheelhouse here. So number one, you've got all sorts of people saying, oh, he's not qualified, bullshit, man. Like, he was chief of staff to the Department of Defense, deputy assistant to Donald Trump, chief of staff at the DOD. He was involved in the DNI, right? He was the deputy director of national intelligence, where he oversaw all 17 intel agencies. He led Trump's counterterrorism mission. He's an attorney. He was a federal attorney and has an outstanding record. I mean, this guy's a freaking rock star, man. And I've seen him speak in person. And I think that there's something that's lost in videos that you get in person. I don't know how to describe it. It's like the French say, that je ne sais quoi, whatever you want to state. This guy's a real deal, man. And my final point before you run with this, S2, is there are a slew of people who've been the director of the FBI that never served in the FBI or any other similar capacity, but they want to say Kash Patel is, a bad choice because he never worked in the FBI, but neither did the Democrats, so take it away, take as long as you want, because, I love this guy.
Well, no, Kash Patel is not qualified. He's obviously not on the side of the deep state. He's going to undermine them. He's going to expose them, and I really can't wait for this. I mean, with what he did with Devin Nunes, in exposing the whole Russiagate and the FISA stuff and all of that stuff that was going on. This dude, he's kind of like the General Flynn of the intelligence agencies. He knows where all the bodies are buried. If anybody hasn't seen Government Gangsters yet, you either need to see it or you need to get the book, because it is absolutely spot on.
Right on. Very well said, S2. So this one caught me. I thought this was kind of funny. So that sound in the distance is Intel shredders working overtime. The apocalyptic Beltway buddies were fine lying about the laptop from hell. They were fine backing up Garland's snub of a congressional subpoena, which, by the way, is why Bannon ended up going to jail. Garland can say, no, I'm not going to respect that. It's I don't feel it's legitimate. Nothing happens to him. But Bannon does. Not only did they send him to prison, they held him for a month longer than they were allowed to, which was pretty dirty. But, these are the same people. They were okay with sending FBI agents into Mar-a-Lago to go through Melania's underwear drawer, to take documents and put false covers on them, indicating that they were, top secret when they weren't. And even if they were, the president has the ability to, override that. I mean, look at this list of, I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, these are bad people, right?
First on my list, I want to see Brennan and I want to see Comey go down.
I am so with you on this. And it's funny because I was just fixing to hover over Brennan right here. Patrick Byrne, the Overstock CEO, the Senate Intel Committee insider, et cetera, well, asset, I guess you would call it, for lack of a better term. He said to me, he said, you know what, Obama's not the intermediary between, the globalists, the Rothschilds and all that sort of stuff. He said, it's actually Brennan. Brennan runs the show from the day-to-day aspect, and Obama just reports into Brennan, not the other way around. He is a truly evil, evil guy. Like, I don't know how else to describe that. I mean, do you want to expand on Brennan at all? You don't have to, but if you want to, I'll give you the time to do it. I'm thinking maybe we lost S2 again here. S2, can you hear me?
There I go. There I go again, talking about people I shouldn't be talking about.
Well, yeah, I'd love to. I want to give you the stage to discuss Brennan for the reasons that I just mentioned, plus your own reasons. But that guy that's the head of the snake.
I think he's part of the Hydra. He's not the head of the snake. He's part of the Hydra that's there. Between him, Comey, and Clapper, I believe those three are the Hydra that makes up the national intelligence agencies. And as far as Brennan goes, he may be the head of the snake in the middle, but Clapper and Comey are definitely on the outskirts of that. So I'm expecting my internet to go down at this point again.
Oh, that's too funny.
But I want to see them go down, and I want to see them brought in front of Congress, and I want to see them taken out in handcuffs.
Yeah, I mean, they committed crimes against America. Full stop.
They've committed crimes against humanity, not just America.
Yeah,
they have been the fomenters of wars in other countries, where we have sent our guys over there to kill people, innocent people that should have never been involved in those wars. And it is time for them to come to the bench and stand before the man.
Very well said. Couldn't agree more. So let's move on to the next post here from Benny Johnson. He's got really good stuff. He's one of my favorite people to follow on X. So the MSNBC meltdowns over Kash Patel, the most dangerous nominee we've seen yet to our democracy. I'm going to play the whole thing.
Is there enough backbone there, do you think, to defeat multiple nominees?
I don't know. I think it's possible. And look, we saw it with Matt Gaetz already, and I think that I was actually surprised how quickly that happened. To me, Kash Patel, and I don't say this lightly, is the most dangerous nominee that we've seen yet to our democracy. And you might think that having Pete Hegseth running the military is a greater level of danger because of his lack of experience, or Tulsi Gabbard at intelligence. But just as far as the threats to democracy that we were warning up about before the election, and Kash Patel was a key player inside the Trump White House, pushing for and orchestrating the coup attempt in 2020. He was trying to completely take control of the Justice Department at the time. He was Trump's top lieutenant, who was willing to do anything and advance any lie in service of his attempt to overturn that last election, to such a degree that there were many people that were Trump appointees in 2020 who were staying around and saying no, like standing in the breach and saying, no, not Kash Patel. Like, you cannot put Kash Patel as a temporary leader of the Justice Department, et cetera. These are Trump appointees. And so, I will see what happens in the Senate. But if Trump had people around him that were quasi-loyalists that were like, that guy's too far, who knows what that'll mean for the Senate.
You want to speak to any of the comments made there, Stu?
That guy looks like he's about to cry.
That's a kind of a common theme with these. I want to call them these men in the mainstream media, but I might be being overly generous with calling them men. But you're absolutely right. I mean, they're literally in a state of panic and melting down. So I'll move on here to, this is a great comment from Elon Musk on X. Cancel culture has been canceled. And then I'll move to the next one here where he actually speaks to it. This is actually from a year ago when he said cancel culture has been canceled. He's been repeating it lately, but let's listen to part of this.
Let's talk a bit about your tweets. You do some tweets that seem to be, or at least give support to some who would call others conspiracy theories.
Well,
Yes, but I mean, honestly, you know, some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was a pretty big deal. There was Twitter and others engaged in active suppression of information that was relevant to the public. That's a terrible thing that happened. That's election interference.
But how do you make a choice? You don't see, I mean, in terms of when you're going to engage. I mean, for example, even today, Elon, you tweeted this thing about George Soros. You said he wants to erode the very fabric of civilization, and Soros hates humanity. Like, when you do something like that, do you
I think that's true. That's my opinion.
Okay, but why share it? Why share it? Especially, I mean, why share it when people who buy Teslas may not agree with you, advertisers on Twitter may not agree with you? Why not just say, hey, I think this? You can tell me, we can talk about it over there, you can tell your friends, but why share it widely?
I mean, this is freedom of speech. I'm allowed to say what I want.
You absolutely are, but I'm trying to understand why you do, because you have to know it's got to, you know, do your tweets hurt the company? Are there Tesla owners who say, I don't agree with his political position because, and I know it because he shares so much of it? Or are there advertisers on Twitter that Linda Yaccarino will come and say, you got to stop, man, or, you know, I can't get these ads because of some of the things you tweet?
You know, I'm reminded of the scene in The Princess Bride. Great movie.
Great movie.
By the way, I want to comment that what you're seeing here is textbook Elon. Like you said, S2, words matter. He chooses his words extremely carefully.
He is so high.
Killed his father. He says, offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care. You want to share what you have to say.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
I mean, that says it all right there, S2. I would like to note that that's over a year ago, and that since then, the advertisers have come back to X in droves because it's just a wildly successful platform since he restored free speech. But go ahead and
I was waiting for him to tell him to go fuck himself.
It wouldn't have surprised me at all if he had done that. Textbook classic Elon, in my opinion.
You know, that's kind of really a stupid question to be asked in the first place. You know, you're talking to a man who's one of the richest people in the world, who, you know, they don't ever come out and they say, you know, what Bill Gates says. You know, they don't ever come out against what he says, but yet they come out against what he says because he's on the right side of the fence. And you know, a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with Elon. And for a lot of reasons I can understand why. Everybody says don't trust him because he's into the whole transhumanism thing. You know, and for me, in a certain aspect, while I don't agree with transhumanism, I also see where some of the ideas that he's come up with may actually be good for some people. You know, let's take, for instance, a most simple thing. Let's take a prosthetic arm. You know, a lot of people that have been in wars, a lot of people that have been in accidents and things of that nature have lost the ability to use their limbs, or they've lost their limbs altogether. Imagine if you could give somebody the freedom to regain that back again. And while I don't agree with the transhumanism thing, I do see where a lot of good can come out of it. But I do actually see Elon as an ally of the human race, even though he looks at freedom of speech as a vehicle, because without freedom of speech to be able to say what you want to say, you can't have the exchange of ideas. If you can't have the exchange of ideas, society cannot move forward either in a social way or in a technological way, because then we can't trade ideas, because then we've got one guy standing at the front of the room saying, I don't want you to say that because you don't agree with it, because it doesn't follow my agenda. So for freedom of speech, what he's talking about, yeah, I completely agree with him. Cancel culture has been canceled. We knew that was going to happen eventually.
Yeah, thank goodness didn't happen anytime too soon. I would say that there's something has happened in our culture, and I want to say since the 80s, since the late 80s, where it doesn't matter what the medium is, who the person is delivering the message, but there's been this holier than thou attitude of this person did one thing wrong, therefore they are the devil incarnate, and I don't want to hear anything else from them, and everything they do is bad, bad, bad. And I've been, fighting against that for years and years to say, you know what, I think Trump messed up with Operation Warp Speed, and I sure would like to hear him, cop to that sort of thing. And I don't know if he ever will or not. But even though I feel that that was a mistake, I had some people on a mailing list I was on. It was actually a former FBI agent of all people, and said to me, you can't vote for Donald Trump in good conscience because of Operation Warp Speed. I replied back to him, okay, so who am I going to vote for? Nikki Haley?
Yeah.
We've got to stop roasting people because we disagree with one thing, unless that one thing is a really, really big deal. So, for example, if I agreed with Elon's attitude or opinions on things, and he came out and said that he agreed with late term or after birth abortion, I would write him off completely at that point in time. There's certain things that we can stomach and certain things that we can't, and that's murder. I don't care how you slice it. So
I've had this conversation recently with somebody else. It's there. Somebody was saying that we're supposed to be able to forgive people of their sins of the past, and the problem with it is that somebody kept bringing up the sins of the past continually. And the question that I asked is, when does that person get forgiven? When are you going to put this in the past and move on? We're human beings. We're not perfect. And there are certain things that are unforgivable. And there are certain things that we have to be able to get beyond. And if we don't get beyond a lot of the things that people say and start looking at what they actually do, then we're never going to move forward. We're always going to be in this continual state of divisiveness.
very well said. Could not have said it better myself. So I'm hoping that where things are today versus the past few decades, that we're hopefully turning the corner on this and in a better place. So while you're away, we covered RFK and Big Pharma to a pretty large extent. So I won't mention too much for the sake of not repeating myself previously, but as the head of Health and Human Services, him taking on Big Pharma. So number one, depending on whose numbers you want to believe, somewhere between 50 and 75% of the FDA's budget is from contributions from Big Pharma, number one. Number two, this particular article, he is going to get rid of right there, DTC, direct to consumer drug advertising. So in a presidential election year, Big Pharma accounts for 50% of the advertising revenue for mainstream media. Non-presidential election year, over 70%. And the more I dove into that, the more I realized it's not because they wanted us as patients to go to our primary care physician and say, hey, I saw this drug, write me a script for it, even though I'm sure some of that does happen. It's more so we're back to the mainstream media being a pawn in that Big Pharma can say, listen, you are going to push this narrative or that narrative, or we're going to pull our advertising money from you. And that would be the death knell for many of these mainstream media outlets. And when he nukes this direct to consumer advertising, I'm sure that the maniacal brains in Big Pharma will come up with another way to try and, leverage things for the mainstream media. But I think it's going to put a hurt on them fairly quickly. So any comments on your part, S2, with regards to RFK and Big Pharma?
I think he's on the right track of things. I also think that there's a number of vectors that need to be considered as far as what health is. We look at environmental factors that are going on as well. I can tell you right now, if I were to go out and look up in the sky, I could tell you to the day when it's going to rain again based on what I see up in the sky. Everybody had ran around for years saying chemtrails were not real. Well, now they're admitting to it.
Yeah.
And the things that they're spraying in the air, I do believe, have a direct contribution to the decline of the American people's health. And I'm sure this is going on in other countries as well. It's geoengineering, pure and simple. This is probably something I shouldn't be mentioning. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't go too much deeper into it because we have gotten strikes for this before.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
That's okay.
lost track of it. But once again, we have to look at the environmental factors, not to mention just what Big Pharma's been pushing. And the other thing of it is that the advertising costs that the Big Pharma pushes out there, they're not pushing to the consumer. They're pushing to the doctors. So basically what they do is they advertise, yeah, sure, consumers see it. We all see it at least 200 times a day. There's a drug commercial that comes up and says, oh yeah, take this drug, take this drug. Oh yeah, by the way, if you have a side effect from this drug, wait for the next commercial. And then they have another one for something that treats the side effects from the last one that you saw. So taking that bullhorn away from them, this is what it all boils down to. I've said this one other time in this particular cast. Taking the bullhorn away from the people that are trying to hurt you is what has to be done. And that is exactly what he's doing.
Yes. Yeah. There's a Sun Tzu adage. I can never remember it exactly. And actually, I think Joseph Stalin coined a term around it as well. Basically, he who controls, the mechanism, the megaphone, as you said, ends up controlling everything. So, all right, we'll move on to the next one here. This is insanity. I don't know if you've caught this or not, S2, but if you don't have gender neutral kids sections for toys in California now, it's $250 fine for the first offense, $500 for any repeats. This is just woke communism.
Get this. The Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta, just announced that holiday shoppers should spy on department stores and report any business that doesn't have a gender-neutral toy aisle. These businesses will face fines from the state of California of $250 to start and $500 for repeat offenders. California, you've gone even crazier since Trump got elected.
Man, this stuff is like just crazy.
What the hell is a gender neutral toy? I mean, the only one that I can think of is Legos.
I guess. I don't know.
And even still, that's not gender neutral because, okay, little boys like to build trucks. My son used to build guns out of it. And any girls that I knew that ever played with Legos, they were building doll houses. So what is a gender neutral toy? Somebody explain that to me.
I don't know. Just another way for the communist government in California to shit on their people, I guess. But moving along here, Eugene Vindman appears on MSNBC to cry like a baby because Elon Musk correctly called him and his brother Alexander out for being traitors. The twins are on Ukraine's payroll, traitors to America, warmongers, and lied under oath with regards to their military service. It's only a minute long. I'll play the whole thing, but suffice it to say, him and his brother are just bad news.
Congressman-elect, earlier, Michael referenced your brother, Elon Musk, accusing him of committing treason, saying he will pay after the former Trump impeachment witness accused the tech billionaire and close Trump ally of being unwittingly used by Russia. A reminder of the focus on retribution by this administration.
Yeah, well, I would say that if anybody's on the cusp of having to pay, maybe Elon Musk, because his comments are really false and defamatory, no basis in fact. And so I think he needs to dial back what he said. My brother served honorably in the Army. He's fought and bled on battlefields for this country. And every statement that Elon Musk has made is false. And so I think he needs to dial that back. Otherwise, he's the one in jeopardy of having to pay for defamation.
I don't really have much to comment on this. I just wanted to show what a lunatic the two twins are. If you want to add anything, go ahead. That's two.
Makes me want to look into them.
Yeah, it's they've been pawns of the establishment, and I don't have anything else to say other than put them on the list of people who deserve to be compensated for the things that they've done. Everybody should take credit for whatever they've done, good, bad, or otherwise, right?
Yep.
All right. So Kash Patel, FBI director, it's about to get real fast. Kash is going to pour bleach on the deep state, mop the floor with their heads, and we get to watch. I probably should have put this earlier when we were covering the Kash stuff, but that's the only reason I put this up, is because that's exactly what he's going to do. And I'm not sure how, but Ted Cruz seems to be under the impression that he'll have enough votes in the Senate for a regular appointment and won't have to, go through something like a recess appointment, which we probably should cover at some point in time. If the Senate refuses to validate one of Trump's nominees, there are other processes. A recess appointment is one of them. And it's kind of like a short-term fix. Like you might get somebody in until Congress recesses, then you would have to do it again. But Ted Cruz is pretty confident that Kash is getting the job. So let's hope that he's right. Next one here. Oh, I alluded to this earlier. So MSNBC tells at Free Beacon, it was unaware that Al Sharpton received $500,000 from Kamala Harris campaign prior to friendly interview. And you commented on this already, so I don't think there's anything else for us to add there. And next one here, let's see. This is a 7.5 minute video. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but Jesse Jane Duff, a former Marine gunnery sergeant, defends Trump's Secretary of Defense pick, Pete Hegseth, and women in comment against the ridiculous reactions it created throughout corporate media. I want to preface this by saying, there are significant physical differences between most women and most men, which is why we have world records, national records, state records that are divided between male and female. Sometimes they're further divided by age. And to suggest that the average woman is as strong as the average man, that's just not the case, even with the soy boys that we have these days. And in reality, if you're going to be based on merit, then you should pick the best person for the job. And I'll give a great example. I got a question for you, S2. How many times since the 1980s have you walked into a bank and seen a male bank manager?
Twice.
Granted, we don't go to the bank very often, right? I mean, with online banking. But my point is that almost every bank manager out there is a female. Why are they females?
Because they're good with money.
They do a better job than we do at the end of the day. They cross their T's, they dot their I's, nothing gets by them. Whereas most men have the military mindset, the alpha mindset of, we're going to go take that hill over there. And when we're done taking that hill, y'all can take it and make it the perfect hill, because then we're going to go over here and take this hill next. And that's not terribly pragmatic. So for somebody to be the manager of a bank, they should be very pragmatic. And anybody who thinks that men are better than women at it, the truth doesn't bear that out. We are not the same. We have differences. And in some instances, we have the edge when it comes to physicality and strength. And also that, yeah, there's some women who are ultra competitive, but at the end of the day, alpha men, I mean, we're like the great white sharks, and we're not going to stop until we feast, and then we're going to carry on. So I'll just play the beginning of this because she puts it in her own words much more eloquently than me.
There is plenty to be thankful for. In 52 days, President Trump will be back in the White House, and he will start to correct this nightmare that we have been living for the last One of those things he will help fix is the military, something close to my heart. The conversation about women in ground combat and why it has to be twisted into this totally unrealistic conversation by the left. President Trump's choice for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth restarted this conversation with a resurfaced interview.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. We've all served with women and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
S2, you're a Marine. What are your thoughts on this?
I 100% agree with that sentiment. Not only from the physicality standpoint, there's a number of other factors of having women in ground force combat that causes problems. Number one, there are certain biological functions that women have that can cause problems among the ranks. Secondly, there are psychological issues that can cause morale issues among the ranks as well. There's a reason why women don't serve on submarines. There's always the possibility that if you have a woman that's in ground combat, and I'm probably pissing off a lot of women out there right now, that's okay. That if they were to be captured, give a consideration as to what would happen to them if they were captured by the enemy and taken and tortured. That is a huge morale issue. If they were, let's say, it's one thing to have a soldier's head chopped off and held up on Al Jazeera. It's another thing entirely to have a woman's head chopped off and held up on Al Jazeera. That is that's an extreme morale hit right there that a lot of people can't take. So I when I was in the Corps, I served with women, but they were not there training in a ground combat troop capability.
So well said. Let me just pull something up quickly here. You know, there's always going to be outliers. There's no black and white. There's very few things that are black and white. You know, 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, that's an absolute. But you know, most stuff is different shades of gray. So Cindy and I know a girl. Let me pull her up here quickly, and her name's Lanny Barnes. So she's the chief experience officer at Prairie Fire, which is the old front site in Pahrump, Nevada. And Mike Sterling, Cindy and I, we've worked with her on some of the Surviving Man TV shows and Surviving Man Aftermath. We were just with them at Prairie Fire, actually, in Pahrump. She's a multi-time world champion, you know, biathlete, shooting, all that kind of stuff. And when I'm trying to think, it was her and Dr. Jen. I don't think there were any other women in Surviving Man All-Stars this last season that we just shot. And so they had this one range where it was a 200-yard range. Okay. So everybody started at the back, like the competitors, and they sprinted over 100 yards as fast as they could. And it was kind of interesting to watch the camera guys following behind them with the selfie sticks, and then afterwards trying to, you know, catch their breath. But then they got up to a certain distance. I want to say it was maybe like 50 yards. And there were 3 stations set up. So there was one was an AR that you had to shoot from a prone position, multiple targets. The next one was a pistol that you could shoot from a standing position. And the next one was a shotgun, actually. And it had that shotgun that I just showed in the background of Lanny's that she's won several world championships with. She kicked ass. She won. There were some extremely talented men there. But this was later in the day, well over 100 degrees. They had started the day at 6 a.m. with PT, and she's also trying to do her job at Prairie Fire in between stuff. She told me straight up that she was dead tired, and she still won. So we're not suggesting that women aren't talented, don't have merit and stuff like that. We're just saying that there are certain roles that men are better suited to than women. That's it.
I'll make a comment to that.
Sure.
So in the Corps, Women are held to the same marksmanship standards that men are held to. However, what you will find in a lot of cases, at least when I was in, you didn't have people running around screaming at them over the top of their head. Women generally scored higher in marksmanship skills than men did because they didn't have dudes that looked like they wanted to stomp a mud hole in you, standing over you, screaming at you constantly while you were trying to shoot and concentrate.
Interesting. Well, so suffice it to say, my point really is that there's always outliers. It's not like we're saying women don't have a role in the military. I'm not saying that at all. I got a question for you because I haven't had a chance to look into it. I saw something recently. I don't remember who the person was that said that for every person who's, for lack of a better term, a gunslinger in the military, there are 10 support personnel behind them. Does that sound like a reasonable ratio to you?
Yep, if not more.
Okay. Yeah, just curious. I mean, I think the point that the person was trying to make was that if you want to be, a gunslinger per se, not even just special forces, but even infantry, you have to be good at shooting guns, period. If you can't, if you're not good at shooting guns, then we'll find something else for you to do. So, all right, we got a quick message from CCW Safe, and we'll be right back. Necessity truly is the mother of all invention. And there's so many successes like yours where the product didn't exist, the company didn't exist, and you had to invent it yourself to fill that void.
What we provided, even at the time when we started CCW Safe, it was really better than what most officers were getting through their unions or departments. And you mentioned earlier about competitors. I fully believe that whatever, all of our competitors are going to do exactly what they say they're going to do. It's just we do it a little different. We're not an insurance company or a critical response team. We're really the only one in the industry that has a dedicated critical response team like we have. And, that first 48 hours is so important to lock down. So we just do things differently.
So I just quickly add that CCW Safe, we've worked with a bunch of different companies, self-defense coverage. There's a federal law that says an insurance company cannot pay you benefits if you broke the law, sort of thing. So 95% of criminal charges are pled out before they go to court. So if a DA goes to your attorney and says, hey, I'll make this offer, and you can plea it out, 95% of the time, the attorney will go back to their client and say, you should take this deal instead of rolling the dice and potentially spending many decades behind bars. The second you do that, you just admitted to breaking the law. And if you have been paid any insurance benefits for your legal representation and anything else that's tied to a self-defense, like a citizen-involved shooting, you now owe all of that money back. And CCW Safe, that is not the case. They sell you membership benefits, not an insurance policy. And at the end of the day, I would encourage you. So I said it earlier, we're not in the business of hurting other people's businesses. I know what everybody else has in their policies, but I'm not going to, torpedo them. But I will say this, look at the fine print if you have somebody else and check out a few things. Number one, clawback and recoupment clauses. If it's in there, whether they have used it or not, it puts you at risk for the insurance benefit rule I just mentioned. Number two, there are companies out there, very large, notorious companies who've used the recoupment clause. And number three, there's another entity out there that tells you that they will give you legal representation as much as you need. But what they don't tell you in the fine print is that before they do any work, you have to pay for the subject matter experts, the expert witnesses up front before they're going to defend you, which could be $50,000, $250,000. If you don't have that type of liquidity, too bad, so sad that coverage isn't worth the paper that it's written on. So that's it for that part. We're into the third and final chapter of tonight's episode, and this is where we get into funny haha stuff. I like to end every episode of Survival Dispatch News with two things. One, a laugh. Two, homework for our audience. I guess I should say three things. And the conflicted question of the night. So I thought this was kind of funny, S2. It's propaganda when their candidate loses. Essentially, legacy media is just a propaganda machine to fulfill their masters' agendas. And that I put this up because this is really what we've been discussing tonight. I don't know that there's anything else to beat that dead horse with. So I'll move on to the next one here. And let's check in with CNN after Trump nominates Kash Patel. And this is purposely not in the Kash Patel stuff, simply based on the fact that this is
meltdown.
Yeah, this gets categorized under the funny haha section.
Andrew, I just want to start first with you and just get your reaction to this news tonight.
We got to watch this
just
second
get
time.
your reaction to this news tonight.
So for those people who don't recognize, that was Andrew McCabe, former head of the FBI, and just a total establishment pawn, shill, whatever you want to call it. Definitely not one of the good guys, right? All right. So next one here. You never know where the catastrophe will start or happen. Will strike, I should say.
Oh, no.
We're going to have to let this play a second time.
Damn, that hurt.
Apologies, but that stuff makes me laugh. I know. 55 going on 15, whatever. All right. So the next one here, it's got colorful language, but it won't kill you to hear it, but it's funny. All right, here we go.
See, as you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out. See, as you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
Made me laugh. Just had to share that. Oh my God. All right. So the next one here, S2, I'm not sure what the heck this thing is. I tried to share it in the Signal group, but this Sim Warlord dude, he marks all of his posts as protected. So you can't share them. You can't view them unless, he lets you. I'm not sure why that is, but whatever this thing is, I've already put a notice into Santa that I want this thing.
That is a Roman candle barrage.
I was wondering if it was a Roman candle. Had to home. That sucker damn near ran for an entire minute, S2. I mean,
yep, that is a Roman candle barrage. It's where you take a bunch of Roman candles and you strap them up with electrical tape and you light the fuse and nobody knows when it's going to go off.
That thing's bad to the bone. I freaking love it. So, all right. Well, before we get into the homework, we have 3 sponsors for tonight. So just want to give a quick mention here to Native Path and their drinks, Native Hydrate. So these are branched chain amino acids. You can get them in small packets. The biggest thing about this, and there's all kinds of science behind it, and I'm not going to bore you with that sort of stuff, but it tastes really good in addition to hydrating you better than just normal water. And it's not laden with sugar, which is, sugar makes your blood sugar rise, then it crashes, makes you hungry, so you go eat more. Sugar will turn you into like a fat absorption machine, for lack of a better term. But we've got a link, so if you click down below, nativehydrate.com/dispatch, you get up to 44% off when you buy this product. I took it for 2 months for free and loved it so much I went and I bought another 3-month supply out of my own pocket. I'm pretty fond of the saying, we eat our own dog food. So you can get rid of the sugar waters like sodas and other sports drink, improve your health and how you feel with nothing more than this. If you, limit or hopefully eliminate tons of sugar, then this type of product, you will notice a difference almost immediately, like within the first day of taking the product. So when you go and buy something from somebody like Native Hydrate that supports Survival Dispatch News, I haven't even taken the time to put all the man hours together that everybody spends behind the scenes on putting together everything that we do at SDN. But I can tell you that the briefs that we put out each day have a minimum of 6 hours of research into them. Many times it's 8, 9, 10 hours. And sponsors like this pay us a reasonably small amount of money in the grand scheme of things. But if we didn't have them to sponsor us, we couldn't spend the time doing the things that we do. So when you support them, it helps us tremendously.
I just placed another order with them last night.
Right on. Yeah, and I appreciate that, S2. I've drank a ton of BCAAs over the years and did it because it was good for me, but I really didn't like it because it just tasted like crap. So, you know, it has to pass the taste test, then all the other stuff, in my opinion. I know other people, like I just, where I was previously when I was competing, I didn't care if it tasted good because I knew it was the right thing to do for my health and energy. But now at this age of 55, it's got to taste good. Otherwise, I'm not drinking it. Simple as that. So, all right. Homework. I only have one item tonight, S2. So for those of you who have hung in this long, if you haven't got to the end of an SDN episode before, we typically assign a few different things that you can do at the end of the video that will have a positive impact on you, or whatever the thing is that we're discussing. And really the only thing homework wise is to continue supporting real news from us, Survival Dispatch News, and other truth tellers. And you do that by sharing our links, and you share other truth tellers' links, because the only way we're going to overcome the suppression that we see. I mean, we've got 400,000 subscribers on our main YouTube channel, and once in a blue moon, the censorship won't light us up, and we'll get 100, 200,000 views in the first couple hours, or first day at least. And that's straight up suppression, because we've been penalized because we share stuff that's against the narrative. We discuss things like guns that they don't like, blah, blah, blah. So the only way we can overcome that is, like our stuff, comment on it, share it, and help us get out from under, the thumb of oppression, and yeah, you know what? YouTube owns, Google owns YouTube. They can do whatever they want as a private business, unless you're the Department of Justice and you're pursuing them for anti-competitive.
I want to see Kash Patel go after them.
So Trump has announced that he's going to go after YouTube and Google for election interference, 2016, 2020, and 2024. And he's going to win, because we know. So the bottom of the screen is called the fold in technical terms. 90% of clicks happen above the fold, whether it's search engine results or a website. So you've got to have your CTAs, your calls to action, have to be above the bottom of the page, because 90% of people don't scroll and go click on those things. So as far as like election stuff is concerned, good example. On July 13th, what happened? And to this day, unless they've changed it just today, you won't get a result that says there was an attempt on Donald Trump's life. You look at anything that's related to an election that Trump's name's attached to, it'll be buried 5 or 6 pages deep. Nobody's going all that deep. Nobody's clicking on that stuff. And the number that I've heard that Trump's team feels has been manipulated is 6 million votes. They feel 6 million votes. This election, the last one, and the previous one, 6 million per election because of the suppression. All right. So
I think that's worth $100 a vote.
Yeah, could be. That's fair enough. Just 2 quick reminders. If you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, click the link below. You can sign up for free, get all of our episode briefs. It's like essentially curated daily news for you. And if you decide to pay the $9.99 to become an insider, you get a whole bunch of other stuff, behind the scenes content, early access to content. But the biggest thing, I think, is access to our encrypted Signal chat. S2's in there frequently. The amount of information that is shared and disseminated through the Signal chat is phenomenal. And of course, we appreciate the support. And we're on to the conflicted question here, S2. So here we go. To ensure support for its operations and views post-World War II, the CIA recruited American journalists. Hey, wait a minute. Do you have the brief in front of you?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. I was going to let you take the reins, but I'll finish it. The CIA recruited American journalists and media outlets, funded the creation of student and cultural organizations, launched purely propaganda-based print media, and ultimately worked its way into political campaigns and employed similar methods abroad. Mainstream outlets like the New York Times, Washington Post, CBS, and many other actively and willingly disseminated propaganda disguised as news through suppression, censorship, and selective focus, all in the interests of the government. After this conspiracy has been proven real through a congressional hearing in 1975, the CIA claimed that it would no longer continue with these activities, code-named Operation Mockingbird. Do you think the government still influences the media, and why? This is a perfect summary to today's episode. S2, there's no sense of me even answering this. Just let her rip.
Yeah. Why? Because they have a certain agenda that they want to accomplish. They have a certain set of goals that they want to accomplish, and they have to turn people's brains to mush so that they will become more compliant and complacent in their lives and be able to continue on and boil the frog.
Very, very well said. All right, that's the end of tonight's episode. We'll be back tomorrow night at the usual time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we've got Matthew Nugent joining us again from the MacArthur Society. And he is going to walk us through the modern day spectrum of war. So the spectrum includes everything. S2, do you want to describe what the spectrum is since you're a Marine?
Well, as far as the spectrum goes, there's first generation through fifth generation warfare. Fifth generation warfare, which is what we're in now, has certain kinetic aspects to it, but it's mainly informational.
There you go. All right. Well, I appreciate your time and insight, S2. Appreciate everybody out there watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless America.
Hoorah.
Introducing the Musin Wild Mini, a retro Army-style Bluetooth speaker with superior sound performance. The perfect companion for your next adventure. No matter if you're out for a weekend trip with your friends or just bring it when you're out alone, Musin Wild Mini is designed to unleash your authentic inner wildness at any place you can imagine. Now you can enjoy music on full blast. Crank up the volume without sacrificing sound quality. The intuitive control makes it very convenient and easy to use. Just control your playlist directly from the speaker through Bluetooth without touching your phone. An included LED light makes it also perfect for night activities or camping. Rugged, powerful, and portable, Musin Wild Mini is not just another toy gadget, but an extremely tough speaker with superior sound performance that fits in the palm of your hand. Using only premium materials, the speaker is designed with a full metal body, ammo boxes structure, and a unique knob shape, satisfying all your illusions of wilderness or military. Musin Wild Mini is a Bluetooth speaker for outdoor lovers. Easy to carry, super sturdy, but not compromising in sound quality. Bid for your Wild Mini now and get ready for your next adventure.